just tell us your name?
Hi, I'm Amy Galloway. Okay.
And then we'll just get straight into the questions. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood?
My childhood, I grew up with a single mom, and we lived in a trailer park. So it was a little rough, but yeah, I grew up with my mom, and my dad was living in Canada. That's where he's from, and that's where I was born. So we had kind of not a very close relationship, my father and I.
How'd your childhood feel in general?
It was really lonely. Oh God, now I'm gonna get emotional. My mom was like working all the time, you know, and you grow up really hard in bad situations like that, a bad neighborhood, and you don't really have the money to like play sports in school, or like, you know, all you have is like your imagination.
Feeling like that as a child, what were some of the things you did to kind of try and get yourself through it, or if you even did anything?
I think, my mom would have me paint a lot to keep me busy. And when she was working, I was brought up by a Hispanic family. So it was the mom who like took care of us, and, we'd run wild in the backyard, and we had this pretty cool like backyard area that it was like a creek, and we'd go like crawdad fishing with like sticks, and we could be kids, and going to school we didn't have like half the stuff the other kids had, but we had our imagination, which was great, and I think that during that time, like growing up, I was able to kind of find myself a little bit.
Yeah.
But being an only child, it's still really hard when you don't have like a dad and you don't really have a mom.
Right. What would you say your dreams and aspirations were as a child?
I knew always like inside me that I was going to do something that was like bigger than where I came from. And I always just would like dream about it, or like, I'd be like laying in bed as a kid, and my mom was like, a single mom. She'd be out, come home late, come home drunk, or whatever. And I always remember just like thinking like, oh, I'm gonna have that. I'm gonna have what those kids have one day, So that's kind of was my my goals, I guess, to not be in that shitty area.
Can you tell us more about your relationship with your dad, or how the lack of a relationship felt?
He was definitely, he was adopted. So he got adopted. He didn't know his mother or anything. He got adopted into a wealthy, like Eastern European family. Well, my grandfather like started his own business, like a mechanic business, and my grandmother, she was just kind of like a candy striper. Like she'd go to the hospitals and like help and stuff like that. But he kind of grew up with like no like real love. He was kind of just put into like this family, and he was adopted when he was 1. So he had kind of all that time as an infant, or he was almost 2, I think,
Yeah.
to like, I think that's the biggest part when you're a kid. You kind of develop that loneliness, I guess. So, as my dad got older, he was definitely like a playboy. He had the boats, the cars, the women, the everything. And when I would visit him, I was always like second best, and never, never treated like, he always treated me like his son. Like he would push me to do like crazy stuff, like, we're gonna go skateboard this park, and we're gonna graffiti it, and then we're gonna go like do this and do that. He would push me to be like the boy, So as I got older, he would constantly like let me down. It would be my birthday, or he'd drop me off at like a girlfriend's and say he was gonna come get me, and then he'd never pick me up. And he always like put people before me, especially women. And as I got older, you know, I started to realize those things.
How did it feel when you felt that someone was being put before you?
It was really, really hard. And this is pretty much this part of the story. I ended up I kind of tried to reconnect with my dad, and I was about 20. I think I was about 21. I think I was 21. And I was working for a makeup line, and my dad called me, and he was like, "Oh, I have cancer." And I was like, "What? Like, I'm supposed to see you in a week, you know?" And I knew that I had to take that time to, like, fix whatever was going on. And it just so happened that he ended up meeting this woman who, well, him and his buddy met this woman and her friend. So my dad ended up dating the gal, and then the other gal started dating the other gentleman. And in that time, the friend actually passed away. His friend passed away of something random. And soon after, you know, my dad got cancer. I think he had it for about a year. But I went up there after I had lost my job, because I told my job, like, my dad's sick. I don't know what to do. And they're like, "Well, your numbers aren't that great, so figure it out." And I was like, okay. So basically, I had to lose my job. And then a friend of mine took me to Seattle to take the Clipper over to Vancouver Island. And I brought, like, a backpack. I had just, like, maybe, like, 1 week of clothes, I guess. And she dropped me off, and she didn't see me for a year later. I had no phone. I had no internet. I had no car. I was just there pretty much trying to get my relationship back to be stable with my father and, you know, try to get him better if I could. And during that time, I met the crazy lady and learned a lot about her. She had a previous husband that died from a very strange cause. And, you know, then next thing I know, she's, like, with my dad and just really crazy, like, holding up a knife to me. I couldn't even stay at the house. I had to, like, figure out where I was going to stay. And while I was there, it was just crazy. Like, imagine being in a country with, like, you know, you're born in that country, but you have a backpack. You don't have a cell phone. You don't have a car. You don't have anything. You can't even get a job. So when I was born, they didn't issue me a Social Security card. So I was trying to get a job, and I couldn't get a job. And so the woman would kind of go back and forth because she lived in Vancouver. So during the time that she was away, I could take care of my dad, but I had to think smart, you know? And I was trying to tell him, I'm like, you got to get rid of this lady. Like, she's bad news. Like, I don't know what's going on with her. And I had to sell aluminum from the shop to feed us. And I remember just being like, oh my God. And a friend of mine, she was like, when are you coming home? She's like, you've been gone for 3 weeks. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm here, like, trying to make this work. And I had to literally go into the shop, which was his source of income because it was their family business. And I'm like looking at a junkyard, like, what in the hell am I going to do? And I ended up thinking, I had heard, like, you know, people that are on drugs sell copper wire. I'm like, copper wire? I'm like, well, this metal's got to be valuable then. Yeah. So I kind of just, it popped in my head, and every morning I'd wake up and I borrowed a friend I went to school with's truck and loaded the truck up every day. Like, I was sitting out there with a sledgehammer and I was like pulling these like wires out of these motors, thinking I need to get the pure aluminum. And somebody said to me, they're like, girl, what are you doing? Like, you can just take the motor and put it in the truck and like take it. It's not going to be like, you know, it's not going to make a difference. It's going to be like a few cents. So I was feeding my dad off of, you know, metal and
How's
scrap
your
metal.
relationship progress from there?
It was still really difficult because the influence of the woman.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it came a point where she pretty much like kidnapped my dad at this point, like, you know, a few months, you know, into that year. She ended up taking him across to Vancouver Island and holding him pretty much hostage in her home.
Mm-hmm.
And she would go to work and she would lock all the doors and he would be in there by himself. And I'm like on the island with no money and no car. And how do I get from like the island to the mainland to get him back over here, you know?
How did that feel and how did you get yourself through that?
I was just like, I can't believe this, you know? Like, I don't know what to do. Like, this lady's killing my dad. Like, legitimately. And I know it, and I can't stop it. And she was feeding him, she was taking him to multiple doctors and feeding him liquid morphine. And so in the spare bedroom, I opened like my old room from when I was a kid, and there was literally garbage bags to the ceiling full of like codeine and liquid morphine. And she was sedating him so much that he was not coherent. So I ended up having my friend that let me borrow his truck. We went over, we took trains and buses to get to this hospital. And it was like a bad movie. You know, you walk in and it looks like something out of a horror movie. You know, we were in like a very like Asian inspired area, like a little Tokyo type area. And there was like a bed here with someone dying, a bed here with someone dying. I mean, it looked like a concentration camp in there. And, you know, I looked at my dad and I was like, we have to go. And I couldn't get him out of there, you know? And I didn't have a place to stay. We didn't have a place to stay, nothing. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I have to leave you here. Like, if I can't get you to, like, get out of here. So my friend and I, he ended up paying for us to get a hotel. And, like, I think the next day she got him home. And my plan was, like, okay, to go to the house once the lady went to work and try to get him to, like, go with us. And so, I go over there and knock on the door. He opens the door and I'm like, Dad, we gotta go. Like, we gotta get out of here. And sure enough, I hear all the locks just like trickle. I mean, there's like, had to be 5 locks on this door. Just click, 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 like a movie. And the lady opens the door and she's screaming and like going crazy. And she's like, get out of my house, blah, blah, blah. And it was really strange because in one of the bedrooms she had an urn of her last husband. And I knew that like my dad would be right next to it if I didn't get him out of there.
So how'd you get him out of there?
I couldn't. And you know, that really broke my heart because it's like, this is my last chance to like get you to realize like I'm here to like try to help you, mm-hmm. you know, and maybe rebuild that relationship that we didn't have. So it was really, really intense, and I kind of had enough of it, and I just said, I'm done. You know, I don't know what I'm going to do anymore. I can't work. You know, you are choosing this over me once again. And he ended up dying shortly after. And the worst part was that my dad was pretty much born by himself. Mm-hmm. And he left by himself, you know, at least not with his daughter by his side. And the woman didn't tell the hospice nurse that he had a daughter until like the last few moments that he was alive. And the hospice nurse called me and she's like, we have your dad here in the hospital. He's like in a coma, like you know, he's probably going to pass away soon. I'm sorry that we found out that he has a daughter so late. And I was like, well, how do I, like, I'm trying to look for a flight as she's like on the phone. And there's no way for me to get there. And I just told her, I was like, she's like, do you want to say anything? And I just said, you know, I talked to him and I could just hear him breathing. And I said, I forgive you for everything. I'm going to move to LA and I'm going to be fine, you know? And I told her to give me a call when he passed away. And as soon as I hung up, the phone rang. And it was just like insane, you know, knowing that someone basically like murdered my dad in front of me, and I couldn't even fix it.
What are some of the things you do to try and process that whole time in your life and the tragic event?
I have become a workaholic. And, you know, I took that time and I moved here and I got into a lot of trouble. You know, I ended up being in a really abusive relationship with someone who tried to kill me. And they were on steroids and strangled me almost to death. And he got a bloody nose and they took me to jail thinking that I did it. So I've had like this crazy like situation, this insane situation happen. And then I moved to this, you know, huge city just trying to work and figure everything out. And then I'm in this relationship with someone who's trying to kill me. And the only thing I could do was try to get away. And you know, I ended up getting away. I lived in a hotel, actually pretty similar to this. And, you know, I just kept working and I had such a hard time, like, living here in the beginning. I moved all over. I slept on couches, but I just kept working, you know. I kept just, like, it would take my mind off of everything. And anything extra I could do, I just kept pushing forward. But, you know, I mean, it's still a hard situation, and it's real. It's real that people are evil, you know?
What about your relationship with your mom and how that felt?
You know, I left kind of everybody behind when I moved here. I didn't want anything to do with anybody. I didn't take a photo of my mom. I didn't take a photo of my dad when I moved here. I didn't even want to look at like a family photo. I just wanted to go and like start over and, you know, live my life I was, you know, supposed to be living if this is what it's going to be, you know.
What would you say you learned from your parents?
I mean, my mom was always, don't ask me for help. I don't, you know, it's figure it out. That's the only thing she ever told me. Figure it out. So, you know, I learned to figure it out on my own, I guess. I learned that I can't be like them, you know. I can't be in love with someone because I'm lonely. I can't be, you know, someone who's going to stick to something and put my child in the background or choose someone over my child, you know. So I learned that if I was ever a parent, that's not how I'm going to be.
Can you tell us about your first love and how that felt? It can be whatever you associate as your first love. It can be a person, it can be a hobby, it can be whatever.
I would say my first love was doing makeup, what I do now. You know, the feeling I get when I am able to make someone happy, you know, something that I haven't had so much in my life. So I think I just have so much joy and I get so much positive energy from that. And I get to be a part of like their dreams, you know. I think that's been so important to me, I guess. And now I feel like I'm doing it so much and it's crazy the feeling I get from it. I mean, even more so than I ever had before. Yeah. I mean, it's like somebody like lit your soul on fire, you know, just their happiness, and they're so grateful. And, you know, half the time I'm like doing stuff for free just to go do it,
Right.
you know, just to have the positive in my life.
What about your first loss or heartbreak and how that felt? It can be whatever you associate as your first loss or heartbreak.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think my first heartbreak was losing my dad, you know? I think that was something that, like, I can't get back, but, you know, he's come to me in, like, some pretty strange ways that don't make sense until recently. I ended up meeting this girl at work, and she started talking to me about my dad, and I never met her in my life. And she described him, and she said, oh my gosh, she's like, did your dad die of cancer? And I was like, yeah. Okay. And she's like, well, he's here with you right now. And I was like, okay. And she was describing my apartment. She was telling me things that she would never know. And he apparently told her that he's my biggest fan. And he told her, which was really strange, like, don't lose your faith.
Yeah.
And for the past, I'd say 5 years, I think that happened 5 years ago, I've been trying to find that answer, you know? Like, little things will come to me, like, that are really weird, like that. And that statement kind of sticks in my mind. And until recently, I watched a short clip of a documentary of a famous fitness model that I've worked with, similar photographers and stuff. And he was going through a really hard time in his life, and his mom told him when he was in prison, don't lose your faith. And when I watched that clip recently, the key was right there. Mm-hmm. And, you know, what he had did was, you know, make a sacrifice, and he started writing down his dreams while he was in prison and doing all these things, and started speaking with people and kind of like rising up above whatever he was doing. And while I'm watching this clip, I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting the answers, like, that I've been waiting for. And it's right before I'm like talking to you guys, so it's even more weird. But, you know, it's been really crazy to see that kind of thing. And I stood in my kitchen the other night, and I was like, oh my God, like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I'm supposed to be pushing forward. Yes. And not losing faith in my dreams, and, you know, God too, you know. Right. He's carried me the whole way.
Right. So what are some, what does not losing your faith mean to you, like, uniquely to you? What does that mean to you?
I mean, my thought of it was always just like, you know, you can do anything you believe in. I've been proven that time and time again in my career, in my life. And as long as I keep staying on a positive route and being busy and not getting caught up in the negative, mm-hmm. I flourish. You know, things happen. I get a magazine I'm published in for makeup. I get this, I get that. Or money just comes on a random day. You're like, did I just make $600? Like, what's going on? Or you ask for something, you know, during this quarantine thing, I drove down by where I live now in Redondo Beach, and I used to say, oh, I just wish I had a apartment with a balcony and an ocean view. And I said it out loud, and that day I found it, and then I got the apartment. So it's like, you know, to me, that's not losing my faith, is that it is real, like, you know.
Who would you say first taught you love, and how?
My grandmother, my mom's mom. And she was like the sweetest person ever. She used to like sleep in my bed with me until I was like 15. But no, she was just an amazing human. She'd do anything for you. And, you know, she always was so proud of me, and she let me get away with murder, I feel like, sometimes. But, you know, she was really loving, and she kind of knew, like, the situation. And of me growing up, and she always tried her best to give me the most love, you know, over her other grandkids, I feel like.
What's love to you now versus what it was compared as a child? How do those two different loves feel?
They're very different. I think um, love is even more special, I think, to me now, you know, and you can love everybody. Like, I love all the people that I get to work with, like they're my brother, my sister, you know. I think it's truly seeing people for their true self, you know, their inside, and, you know, I think that that's the most amazing thing is love to me is what you see in other people.
Can you tell me about a good day for you? Like, just what's, you finish a day and you're like, man, today was a good day. What does that consist
Working. I mean, I work my regular account executive job, and I'm super busy with that. But on my days off, I'm also working. And some days they're 12-hour days, some days they're 8-hour days. But when I leave, I'm like, oh my God, like this was the best day ever. Like I literally like scream in my car like a 12-year-old. So it's just a unreal feeling, I guess. The people I get to meet, the, you know, perfecting my skills, being a better artist. I think just being creative, I think, is the best day, you know.
The opposite of that, tell me about a bad day and how you push through that bad day.
Say a bad day is maybe not feeling as confident or feeling stuck or confused. I don't know. I try to at least read something, a quote or a meditation, or, you know, I'll go like on a hike or something to just clear my mind. And I feel like that's the best way that I take care of it.
What's a person or an event that has shaped you, good or bad? How's it feel when you reflect on that person or event? So it can be anything.
Person. I did get the chance to work with someone who's an outstanding photographer, who photographs some very high level celebrity people. And when I met him, he wanted to have a meeting and feel out my vibe and kind of see who I was. And I ended up opening up to him and about this exact situation somehow. I don't know how we even got on the subject, but he gave me a chance to work with him.
Nice.
And, you know, I learned so much while I was there, just about people, and I've never seen someone take their artistic ability and their who they are and take a cursor across the eyes of the model and try to connect with them or see if they're connecting. And I really like resonated with that. I was like, wow, this is insane. I've never seen anybody do this. Like, you know, but the feeling was so great because I'm learning while I'm there, and, you know, that person really has taught me a lot in the couple of times that I've got to work with them, in terms of just me being better, or, you know, learning lighting, or just how he deals with people and how he gets them to open up, and he asks them questions just like you're asking me questions. And sometimes the model cries, and sometimes the model's happy, sometimes the model's scared, nervous, guy or girl, but it's a really cool experience, you know, and I'm always just like blown away by what I'm witnessing. And sometimes I cry too. I'm like, oh my God, like this is emotional.
What inspires you?
Those situations, people, period. I mean, I think the best part about the side stuff I do is just meeting people. It's so cool to just learn about people and where they come from, and I've met such beautiful people from different countries, different walks of life, like, and I learn something every time.
What's been a humbling experience for you? Can you describe how that experience felt?
I'd say when I got in trouble and I had nowhere to live and I was just, making bad choices, and I feel like it's a reminder that, it, you gotta just be thankful, and I think now where I'm at mentally, I'm in such a better place, and I want to, from that experience, people, they look at me and they're like, oh, you probably grew up in so and so area, like Malibu or whatever. I'm like, oh my God, okay. Like, not exactly. I'm like, not even close. But, like, I feel like to me, it's made me a better person. And I hope that other people will hear that story and, reach out to me or whatever, because I'd love to help them, be better, whatever it is.
Go in your mind and think. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Tell me about a time in your life that you can relate with the word war.
I think when I went to jail.
How long were you in jail for?
Well, not that long, but it was super scary. I went to jail for a DUI when I was like 23. And they ended up mixing up some paperwork, and they put a bench warrant out for me for $100,000. And they picked me up and took me to Santa Ana County Jail. And I was like, I don't know what's going on because I didn't do anything. I've been doing everything I was supposed to do. I made my mistake. So I got put in as an inmate, and I had like the whole jumpsuit and the whole sandals and the bunk. And it was intense. I mean, I was in that situation, and that was like right at the beginning of when I moved to LA, pretty much. So it was even worse. It was during when all that chaos went with the ex-boyfriend and the trying to kill me situation. And then here we go again. Now I'm like in jail, and I don't have anybody to help me. Like, what am I going to do? So I went in there, and I was like, numb to the whole thing. I'm like, okay, you can't cry. And of course, I walk up to the clerk dude, and he's giving me my bracelet, and he's like, oh, you're too cute to be in here. I'm like, I'm not even supposed to be in here, number one. Like, this is bullshit. And so I go in, and I was in a cell block with some pretty questionable women, and it started to get pretty scary. One of the women made something up saying I had 12 grams of speed in my tampon. And I was like, I don't even know what speed is, but okay. So, I just knew, I was like, I have got to get out of here. Like, I got to go to work. I've got stuff to do. Like, I cannot be in here. This is crazy. And, at that time in my life, I was like, this is either going to be a life or death situation, because Santa Ana is not where you want to be. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's a very scary place. So I ended up, thank God I had some money in my bank account, but I just knew I had to get out of there. And I was like at war with myself. I feel like, just like, I can't believe I'm in this situation. I didn't even do anything. I'm just getting screwed by the system. Once you're in, you're stuck. So I got out, and I went to my court date, and they literally asked me, they're like, why did you bail out? I'm like, excuse me? Like, I have shit to do, like work. I'm like, I can't just be like at your leisure. And they're like, well, it wasn't going to be another charge. Like, it just is it for your DUI. And I'm like, oh my God, but you messed up. I'm like, okay. So it was just a crazy experience. Like, you hear about people getting incarcerated for wrongfully accused all the time. And I'm a blonde white girl with blue eyes, and it happened to me. you know.
What was the biggest lesson you took from that?
I learned how to make blush out of Kool-Aid. I literally saw that. I was like, it's time to go.
So same type of question. Go in your mind and think this life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Tell me about a time in your life that you can relate to the word peace.
I would say when I'm hiking in Palos Verdes, that time for me is so intimate mentally. Like, it's such a moment of, you know, wow, look at all the things you had to go through. And now you have your apartment that you asked for. Somehow you got it. You got your awesome job that you love, that you've had for 7 years, which is awesome. You know, great career. And then you have all these other side jobs that you take on your days off, which keep you super busy, but it makes you happy. You're passionate about it, you know? I mean, I think that that's when I go to bed at night, I'm like so thankful. It's like peace to my heart finally, that I'm at a place where I can feel safe, number one. And number two, like, I know everything is going to be okay. And, you know, the more time I take to reflect when I go on those hikes by myself, I mean, I do everything by myself. It's almost weird. But yeah, I don't know, get out of bad situations, get into good situations. But I feel like when I go up there, you know, I just can't believe I made it, you know. I can't believe I'm still able to live here, and no one, as many times as everyone's tried to take it from me, they couldn't do it, you know. So.
Can you tell us about a truly difficult time in your life and how that felt and how you endured? And maybe you touched on it before, or maybe not.
The last 10 years has been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been crazy, you know.
So what in the last 10 years has been the hardest part of the last 10 years to just keep on going? How'd you endure those?
I think just I always tell people, LA's either going to make you or it's going to break you.
Yeah.
You know, there's no room for somebody who can't handle it.
Yeah.
I think the last 10 years has really sculpted me as a person and opened my eyes a lot to, like, believing in, you know, the power of positivity too. I think, you know, overcoming all of those crazy situations and still being here is unreal, you know, and it just pushes me to keep working hard. And, you know, I don't make time for a lot of people because I don't have anybody to help me. I don't have that, and a lot of people can't understand that.
Would you say the last 10 years has also opened your heart a little bit more?
Probably the last like 2 years. Yeah. I'd say the last 2 years has been kind of the growing up phase for me. I mean, I'm 31 now, and I think I'm finally on a track of like, okay, you know, this is what we need to be doing.
How does it feel to know that you're on the right path?
I mean, it's amazing, and I feel like it's proven time and time again when little things happen, you know, here and there, positive things, or someone wants to work with you or whatever it is, and you're like, yeah. Me? I'm like, really? You want to work with me? Or I get an opportunity, you know, whatever it is. It's crazy. It's like, I feel like I've gotten in the last year, even though 2020 has been wild, I've gotten opportunities that I don't even know how I'm standing in the same room as like 50 Cent, you know, where he has walked, or, you know, The Rock. And I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm standing in the same room, working with the same people. So I think those things definitely have been like an eye-opener for me.
Can you tell me about a truly joyous moment in your life and how that felt?
Truly joyous. Let's see. I mean, I think it's just been the last year. That's it. It's just been so good, I think, you know. I think finally finding your purpose is the biggest for me. Like, a lot of people don't find that. And when you do find it, it's like, you know, the sky's the limit. Like, you can do anything you want to do. Anything you dream of, any person you want to work with. I mean, go get it. It's crazy.
What keeps you up at night?
Oh God, Captain Dreamer over here. What else can I do?
Yeah.
I mean, not dreaming of like, you know, materialistic things, but just what else can I do? What other cool things can I create? What other possibilities are there, you know? I think the possibilities is what keeps me up at night.
What keeps you going every day?
I think just taking a look around and being, you know, appreciate like everything, you know, walk into the coffee shop and be happy and you get a smile from the girl that's making your coffee and she asks you about your day. Oh, are you doing makeup on this today? What are you doing? And, you know, it's kind of cool that people put you at this kind of level of they're excited. They're like, we love watching your Instagram. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. But, you know, that's the things that keep me going. Or, you know, people reach out to me and they have questions and I'm like, wow, it feels special, you know. I never thought I could be like so helpful.
Imagine you're in the hospital today with only hours to live. What would be your regrets, if any?
I don't think I have any. I think I'm good at this point. You know, I think I've finally kind of found the key to something my dad said to me recently with that video from that gentleman. I think that was like huge for me to, why did that guy send me that video? Like, what? And he said, the mom said the exact same thing that my dad said. And I think, you know, I live my life pretty happy. I try to not have bad days. And if I do, it's just a day, whatever. Tomorrow's a new day. But if it was my last day, I think I'd be pretty content at this point.
What's your biggest positive takeaway from 2020?
You know, I think we've had a lot of time to reflect on ourselves, and I think that's been healthy. It's been hard, but it's been healthy. And, you know, I think even being here right now has been a big thing because, you know, I've wanted to talk about this stuff and I knew and I know that all these things didn't happen to me to be quiet about it. So if I can take away from today and help someone else, maybe they were in an abusive relationship or, you know, they had a similar situation, a hardship, whatever, and I helped them somehow to keep believing in themselves, like, I think that's going to be my biggest takeaway.
What would you tell somebody who's in an abusive relationship?
You know, I would hope that they would reach out to me and ask for help. You know, the resources I don't think are as helpful as they should be. I feel like they're kind of confusing and it is a scary situation. You have to have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, you're stuck. But you also have to have the confidence to know that you're worth more than how, you know, this person's treating you.
You told me what your dreams were as a kid. What are your dreams now?
I'm living them, I think.
You're the co-author of your life book. What's your picture perfect ending? Like a scene, if you can envision a scene and you're like, yeah, that's it.
I don't know, being on a beach somewhere in a tropical place,
Yeah.
You know, with a loved one or my dog, you know. I think that would be my perfect ending.